Welcome to the Writer Access webinar, everyone. Happy to be here today with Kevin. Kevin, welcome.
Hey, Byron. Welcome. It's welcoming
welcome.
to be welcomed. Good afternoon.
Here you go. Great to be with you today. Kevin and I have talked on the phone numerous times, and I'm very excited for him to share some of his wisdom that's performed meticulously for multiple clients and to dive us into a really cool topic here that I know he's passionate about and I'm excited about to hear. A couple of announcements which should only take 20 or 30 minutes for me to make. Just kidding. A little Wednesday humor for everyone. Let's all kind of smile and find our inner humor, which is the catalyst for all great writing, I might add. But let's see, number one, we've got an exciting new website that I can promise everyone, we're going to be launching it, I think, tomorrow. I notice I use the word think. It's ready to go. It's in staging right now. We've been poking at it, but Writer Access has been in need of a whole new look, a new feel, a new brand. And we'll be launching that. It is nothing short of jaw-dropping. I think it communicates an important message that we're doing exciting things over here. So there'll be a lot for everyone to explore. We're also going to be launching at the same time tomorrow, we're going to be launching a new website for contentmarketingconference.com. So that'll be exciting. We're actually going to be taking registrations towards the end of the week. If anybody wants to poke at our super early bird rates, we're moving Content Marketing Conference from Las Vegas to Boston in our backyard here. So we're very excited to entertain our clients, our writers, and any fans that might be have seen how we've grown this conference and some of the incredible things unfolding this year. We will have 8 keynotes this year, which is pretty interesting. I'm a real big fan of people abandoning their cell phones and their desktops and listening to an amazing keynote speaker that's a proven authority in the space that we're in, as well as an entertainer and an engaging and just really absorbing the vision for the future and the insights we all need to be better in work and in life. So I'm super pumped about that. We're also going to have 8 workshops this year and 40 speakers as well. So we're really blowing this out and taking this to the next level. It's going to be at the Westin waterfront here in Boston property. So it's going to be over the top. I'm so excited I can hardly stand it. As if that's not enough this week, big week here at Writer Access, we're launching a new app. The application is in the Apple Store as we speak right now. We should be hearing from them today or tomorrow to have it accessible and downloadable for clients initially. That's who we're pushing this out to. In about 2 weeks, we'll push it out to our talent pool. And we built the app so our clients and writers can better communicate together and feel like it's more directly via chat. And to be able to catch them all orbiting at high speeds. But number 2, just make it easy to manage the workflow, approving orders, accepting orders, and just overall keeping the content going and the work flowing. So it's going to be really exciting. It's a big moment, I think, for us. Our clients and writers have been asking for that for a really long time. So we're super pumped, super excited. So stay tuned and look for just some email announcements, and we'll go from there. But back to the biggest challenge of the day isn't anything I just mentioned. It's how to sell without selling, and that's something that's been near and dear, literally, to my heart as I've transitioned from starting out in marketing initially, and then moving over into sales, and then migrating back into being a business owner. So I've really learned the art of how to sell without selling. For me, as I'm sitting here sort of talking about it, it's more learning to listen well and learning to ask questions. I rolled out this whole Socratic selling program for Aquint when I sold my first business into them, and I learned to teach and train people on how to sell without selling by simply asking really good questions and learning about the wants and needs of customers rather than just barking at them with your features and benefits and products. But now it's time for Kevin to help take it to the next level with how do we do that with our writing? How do we do that with our content? How do we sell without selling? And Kevin's just going to deliver a fantastic presentation. I can't wait for it. So without further ado, over to you, Kevin. Let me change presenter here. Give me 1 second. After that long-winded explanation. Give me 1 sec. Okay, here we go. Boom. Yes. Okay. All you.
Ready?
If you can accept that, we'll be off to the races.
You just tell me when you see it.
I see it. We see it.
All right, everybody, welcome to this. This is going to be a lot of fun. My name is Kevin Donald. Thanks for that introduction, Byron. It's going to be a lot of fun to talk to you, whether you write for a living or you own a business. In either capacity, you're selling something. You're trying to persuade people. And I am a marketer. If you get the marketing right, the sales kind of takes care of itself. My living is earned by copywriting. It's kind of a complex skill. It took me 25 years to get proficient at it. You don't have 25 years. So instead of teaching you skills today, I want to give you some tools. You know, I can spend an hour teaching you how to rub sticks together to make a fire, or I could hand you a box of matches. I think you'd rather have the matches. So I'm going to give you some tools that you can use today, 7 of them, and let's get started. I'm really bad at introductions, especially when it's myself. I just like to jump into things. So you mentioned Socratic earlier, Byron. Here's a Greek history lesson for people. You're looking at a picture of the Spartans versus the Persians at Thermopylae. This is 480 BC. The Spartans are wearing the red plumed helmets. There were 300 of them, if you've seen the movie. That's the number. There were 150,000 Persians. 300 Spartans held off a force 500 times bigger than themselves for 3 full days, and they did it because they used something called a force multiplier. It's a military term. They chose to defend a really narrow stretch of ground there at Thermopylae. As a result, they totally negated the Persians' numerical advantage. So they were able to take on a force 500 times bigger for 3 days. So a force multiplier is anything that makes a fighting force stronger. It can be your morale, your weapons, the ground you defend. All of these are force multipliers. You see this a lot in the news with all the conflicts going on around the world. Well, let's not talk about conflicts. Let's talk about marketing. So I came up with the idea of marketing multipliers. That's what we're going to be talking about today. Marketing multipliers make a sales message stronger. I'm going to give you 7 of these ideas today. Anything you're doing right now to sell yourself, to sell your business, to persuade others, these little tools can make that message stronger for you. And you really don't have to change the message. A lot of this has to do with the delivery of the message. But these are ways that I've devised over the last 20 years. I've proven them all on myself or my clients. I'm eager to share them with you today. And then correct me if I'm wrong, Byron, we're going to have some Q&A at the end, and you can jump in and interrupt me anytime as well.
I'm going to interrupt occasionally, but yes, I'm going to be looking over all the questions. People can use the question in the right column and feed them over to me, and I'm going to bottle them all up and ask in the end. Thanks. Super,
already. So let's get started with, here are the elements of marketing multipliers. These are small changes, not big things. A lot of these are very small. They're low cost or no cost things you can do to your marketing to make it more effective. They help you bypass commoditization and really stand out in any market. They help you avoid questions of price, which is a nice thing. You can start charging what you're worth. And it can, when you add it all up, it can make your competitors irrelevant because you're going to be saying and doing things completely different from other people when you use just 1 or 2 of these ideas. But again, I want to give you 7, and let's dive in here. The first one I want to talk about today, I call this the media switch technique. It's basically this. If you've got a sales message that works in one medium, switch it to another, and you can multiply your results without really changing the message so much. Let me give you some examples. Let me back up. For a lot of us, we get locked into one way of doing business, whether it's our website, our email, social media. We find one thing that works, and we tend to get into a rut. So I want to challenge you to pick one other medium today that you can take a proven sales message and just roll it out to that medium and expand your market and build your business, whether it's for you or for your clients. So let's look at an example. This is from a fellow by the name of Walter Bergeron. Really good guy down in Louisiana. I call this the $10 million sales rep in a box. This had a 100% close rate. Everyone who got one of these boxes from Walter bought from Walter. So it's a pretty incredible thing. Really what this is a sales rep in a box. Walter was in the business, a very commoditized business, I might add. It was electronics repaired. And how do we buy commodities? We buy them based on price. When you're shopping for gas, you buy it based on price. Sugar, flour, price, price, price. This is not a place where you want to be. You want to be beyond commoditization. And this is what Walter did. He took a proven sales message, which is really how Walter used to sit down and try to sell his services to prospects. He simply recorded himself on a video. If you look at the top of that case there, there's a little DVD screen. When people got this steamer trunk delivered. I believe he sent it FedEx. It might have been courier service. They opened it up, and that video started to automatically play. So this was a sales message that was working in a one-on-one situation. Walter simply delivered it as a DVD. He also was very smart. He included a bunch of little goodies in that case. He included some examples of marketing materials, written stuff. You can't see it here, but he was really clever. He included what's called a king cake. That's a regional dish down in New Orleans. It's a really delicious cake. And the video started with a message along the lines of, hey, this is Walter. Thanks for taking a few minutes to watch this video. Sit back and dig into the cake. I want you to enjoy that while you're watching this presentation. And again, Walter had a 100% close rate. It's very smart to include food in any of your marketing if you can do it, because it creates an experience. If someone's chomping on a cake or eating some chocolate, drinking some herbal tea, whatever, it increases their engagement with your message, obviously. It puts them in a good mood. It turns what you're doing into an experience. When we go to Disney World, that's an experience. It's just an incredible thing you can only get at Disney World. Same thing here. This is an experience in a box because it was a multimedia message delivered with some cake. Now, I call this the $10 million sales rep in a box because Walter, within 1 year, sold his business for $10 million. He's now semi-retired. He spends most of his time scuba diving. He works with a couple of my clients as an advisor, only when he feels like it because he's independently wealthy, largely as a result of sending this little box in a crate, little message in a box, rather. And all it is, it's a proven sales message that was working one-on-one, delivered in a completely different and utterly unique medium. So this is a perfect example of what I call the media switch technique. Here's another one. This is a case study, one of my clients. I call this the $840,000 sales rep in a bank bag. What I did was, for my client Ryan, he was buying real estate properties by phone, one-on-one. He had to call each of his prospects and talk to them. I don't know, 15, 20 minutes, sometimes more. He would have to go meet with them, and it was working, but it was not scalable for Ryan. So what I did for Ryan was I interviewed him by phone, transcribed his sales message, and put it into a letter. I believe it was 12 pages long. We delivered that sales letter in a bank bag, so it was a unique package. And by the way, you can mail bank bags. I think they cost about $250. The bank bag started showing up at the homes of his prospects. They opened up the sales letters, and they were selling Ryan their homes without even meeting him. That's how persuasive it was, combining the message with the medium here, the bank bag. And so for Ryan, this delivered a total of $840,000 in revenue for him. He was just mentioning in this little quote here, in the last 7 days, I've got $250,000 lined up. That was a good week for Ryan. We ended up doing over $840,000. He's probably north of $1 million by now, but I don't want to get too cute with the numbers. Let's just say it was safely over $840,000. Again, we took a sales message that was working in one medium, which was the telephone. We put it into another medium, which was direct mail. We delivered it in a bank bag, and boom, life changed for Ryan. So I challenge you with the media switch technique here to look at your business now, find one sales message that's working for you, and roll it out into another medium, and just see what happens to you. I'm betting you're going to like the results that you get. That's marketing multiplier number one. Number two, this is a cool one. Call this the paper email. Now, I invented this out of frustration. I was trying to send a message to a fellow by the name of Seth Godin. You probably heard of him. Very well-known marketing guy, one of my heroes. I had seen him speak at an event, and I wanted to send him a thank you note. And like most of you, I started typing a thank you note to send by email. And I quickly realized, well, Seth is busy. Seth gets 10,001 emails a day. He probably won't see my message. So I was thinking, what can I do? I've already written this thing. I want to press the send button. Well, instead, I pressed the print button. I printed the email, and I had an envelope sitting on my desk. So at the top of the email, I just scrawled, hey, I sent you this paper email to make absolutely positively sure I got through your spam folder. My attempt at humor. I put it in an envelope, found his address, took me 2 minutes, put it in the envelope and sent it to Seth. Seth called me back a week later from his car. He said, hey, Kevin, I got your nice note. Thank you for sending it. Really appreciate it. And that was a cool moment. I thought, well, that was interesting. And so I don't like things to happen accidentally. Once I find something that works, I like to make it systematic. So I started developing this concept. I call it the paper email. I started printing messages that I would otherwise send by email and sending them to prospects by direct mail. And you can do this in groups of 1, 2, 20, 100. I've mailed batches of 250 paper emails. You want to send these to the people who matter most to you, your high-value prospects. But the paper email can get you the following. It's gotten me all of these: meetings with prospects, phone calls from busy magazine editors. I got a story placed because of one of these. New clients, new projects from old clients. Don't overlook that. Podcast interviews. Byron, I believe I may have sent one to you, frankly. If I didn't, I sent out bunches of these to people, and that's oftentimes how I get through to a podcaster. Because, again, they're bombed with emails, bombed with social media invites, but they're never going to get a paper email unless it's from me or now from you, because I want to give you this idea that you can run with. So here's what it looks like. It looks like this. If you look at, and the copy is not important, don't worry, don't stress over the wording. This is pretty much, your standard email message. I use a font that looks like a typeface. You can use Arial if you want to look really a lot like an email. But I'm just telling people, hey, I sent you an email yesterday but didn't hear back from you. Life happens, I understand. So to make absolutely sure this message doesn't get caught in a spam filter, I'm sending you this paper email. And then the rest of the message is pretty much, what I would have tried to send them by email anyway. At the top, I put that big red headline, paper email, which is an attention getter, and they think, what the heck is a paper email? And they're compelled to read, and they respond, and I get what I want. So you can get what you want too if you use this little tool. And again, it costs a bit of money, 50 cents for postage, unless it goes up again tomorrow. A little bit of time, you can outsource this, fine, I do. But anyone that you really want to reach, you got to ask yourself, if you're trying to sell yourself for more than $100, do you really want to trust email for all of your most important marketing communications? You could certainly call people, I encourage that, but I'm frankly an introvert, and as a marketer, I'd rather have people call me and say, yes, I want to buy. I'm not a big fan of selling on the phone. Just don't enjoy it. If you can do that, terrific. That's a variation on the media switch technique. But if you want to find a message that's worked for you in the past, print the thing and send it, you can get some really good results with the paper email. And here's an example from one of my clients, a member of my Marketing Multipliers Club. This was Dennis. He's a sales trainer, actually, so an expert on the phone. But he was sending out proposals and sales presentations, sales messages by email, and he was doing okay, but he said, I sent out 6 paper emails and received 2 customers at nearly $1,000. Looking at how I used to send only emails, I would not have had those 2 clients if I had not sent the letters using the templates. And let me go back and show you. It's this easy, folks. Print the thing on paper, give it that headline, paper email, and send it. Couldn't get any easier than that. I like simple stuff. I think I was going to show you the directions for doing it. I'm just going to tell you. The steps are very simple. Step 1, find a message that you know is going to work, whether it's something that's worked in the past or you're pretty confident it'll work in the future. Number 2, print it on paper. Number 3, put it in an envelope and mail it with a stamp. That's it. You can call a couple days later to follow up if you like, but the paper email is, it's a little sales message by mail. It's direct mail for busy people, direct mail if you don't have the time or expense to hire me as a copywriter to do it for you. This is a tool. Remember I talked earlier. I could spend an hour teaching you how to rub sticks together to make fire. I can give you a box of matches. This is a little box of matches for you, the paper email. It's direct mail for busy people. I recommend that you give it a try. That was marketing multiplier number 2. Now number 3, the pruning process. This is related to kind of an ugly truth about websites in particular. Websites are kind of like that closet in your basement or even in your bedroom. It starts to fill up with stuff. Pretty soon you can't close the door and you wonder, where did all this clutter come from? 95 websites out of 100 have got just too much stuff on them, too many distractions. And so a lot of my work as a copywriter, it involves design of a website. It's not just, clever sales messages. It is design. It's how do I make sure they read the message I want them to read and take the action I want them to take. And in almost every case, if I'm coming into a website that was online already and I'm working with some existing copy, I'm going to do some pruning. Most of the time, because there's just too many messages, too many distractions on most websites. So here's a very dramatic example. It delivered more than $460,000 in revenue for one of my clients, so it's worth your attention. You don't have to really obsess over what you're seeing here. I mean, it's a snapshot from Google Analytics. We were doing some testing on a web page, and the you can see the results in the left to right, that bar graph along the top there. If you look at the bottom there, that's where the numbers are. The top one that says with banners, that got during the course of 7 days, $9,400 and change in total revenue. The bottom version that says no banners, that got $13,800 and change. It was a gain of 43%. And when you do the math, this adds up to $462,363 in annual extra revenue. What did I do? What was my clever thing? I simply removed one of the banner ads at the top of the website. I made no other changes to the website. Nothing. I didn't add any clever copy. I took a banner ad off. I think you had two. They were competing for attention at the top of the website, and as a result, people were getting confused and they weren't buying. I removed one little distraction, and it had a sales gain of 43%. Again, more than $462,000 in revenue just by pruning. So this is a new house for you folks. If you can't do the math, in most parts of the country, this will buy you a house and maybe some hired help to clean the thing out for you. But this is a dramatic example of what pruning can do for your website. And let me just give you some ideas on how you can do this. The rule that I work from is distraction causes friction. You want to prune it, remove it. Some areas of your website where you can go through and start taking stuff out. Videos, a lot of people, if you got more than one video on a website, it's probably too many in most cases. So just want to have a clean layout without competing distractions. Pictures, they've got to serve the sales message or they should be gone. Links are a big thing. Links, you have to think of links as an exit. If you've got a store and someone walks in the front door, do you really want to say, welcome to our store, and here are 17 exits to take you away from our store? You would never do that. And yet on a lot of websites, you've got links taking them away from the page that they've just arrived at. As background, I know a little bit of where I speaker. I was webmaster for FedEx.com from 1995 to 1998. So I've been in this game, this online marketing game, for 21 years and counting. And so I got my start back in 1995. The FedEx website had 6 pages. I believe it has like 66 million pages now, but I started in the very beginning, and so I didn't have any bad habits to unlearn. I was very lucky. My boss was the guy at FedEx who put the website online. And one of the things we quickly learned was that, a link is an exit. There are exceptions, but you want to be careful of the links on your web pages and the rest of the stuff on your web pages. Now, you don't have to believe me. That's fine. The way to be sure that this is going to work for you is to simply test it. You want to split test your web pages. You can use Google Experiments or Optimizely or Lead Pages. There are 101 solutions out there. Whatever you do, just try to run a test. Half the audience sees version A of your web page. Half the audience sees version B. What do they do? That's the only thing that matters. It doesn't matter what you think or what the client thinks. What does the prospect think? What does the buyer think? And you can tell by looking at the numbers. And let me just back up. There's no guessing here, folks. Google Experiments told me that it was a 43% increase simply by removing distractions. So I'm in the business of data-driven results, not good ideas or fancy highfalutin thoughts. Data, please. And this is the data. So this is how you know if it's going to work for you or not. You simply want to test it. And I would recommend to anyone, take a hard look at your website and just ask yourself, what one thing can I prune today? And in many cases, you're going to see a change for the better. Not all the time. That's why you need to test it. But in a lot of cases, your website has become cluttered over the months or the years, and you can almost always improve it by removing distractions. So that's the pruning process, one of my favorite marketing multipliers because it's so simple. All right, another one. I'm a simple guy. Here's another simple solution for folks. The newsletter. Notice it's 2 words. That'll become apparent in just a second why. But if you've got clients, especially if you want to sell them more than one project, if you've got referral partners, people who are sending you referrals, there's good news for you. It's the idea that a printed monthly newsletter increases your retention, it increases your referrals, and increases your revenues. It's very simple. A printed monthly newsletter, that's something that you print. It's typically 4 pages. It could go up to as many as 8. You send it every month because when you show up regularly, it proves to people that you are a trustworthy business, You're not a fly-by-night operation. You can keep your promises. When a printed newsletter shows up in the mailbox, you know, the same week every month, it builds a lot of brand equity. It builds a lot of relationship equity. It's a huge thing. It's very simple to do. But here's the bad news when it comes to a printed monthly newsletter. It's a pain in the posterior. There's printing involved. There's design and layout and postage, of course. I've done them off and on for years. And it's true, it was a pain in the posterior, and I ended up suspending my printed newsletter, unwisely, by the way, about a year and a half ago. And surprise, surprise, my referrals went down. Not enough to worry me, but it was noticeable. So if you've ever thought about sending a printed monthly newsletter, you heard it was a good idea, but you didn't have the time or money to send one, well, I've got some terrific news for you. I want to recommend that you don't mail a newsletter. I want to instead recommend that you mail a newsletter. Two words there. It's a letter with news in it. And this is a classic 80-20 solution. A newsletter, the standard one, remember, it's typically 4 pages, let's say. It can come as a self-mailer. And you want to include things like, you know, jokes and a letter from the editor and pictures of the staff and customer of the month and, you know, Sudoku puzzles. We've all received those. Most of them are bad, by the way. Most of them are totally about business. You want to include some personal stuff. You want to make a personal connection with your readers. But again, a newsletter can be a pain. And so for that reason, a lot of people, most people that I talk to, they quit after a few months. I've been around newsletters and used them in one form or another for going on 20 years. And most people will quit. Most business owners, or if you sell a service for yourself, you know, you'll just get sick of it and stop. But a newsletter is a classic 80-20 solution. By that I mean it's about 20% of the time and effort of a standard newsletter, and it gives you about 80% of the results. You're going to get almost 80%, sometimes more, sometimes less, but about 80% of the referrals and new clients and projects and retention that you would get with a standard, more expensive newsletter. So what is a newsletter? This thing that's one sheet of paper. Now, here are the steps, first of all. Find some good content. I think everyone on this webinar can get their hands on good content. I hope you can. So find something that you know resonated with your audience. Look at your website logs or the comments. Find something that you know is good. And you only need to do this once a month. So I'm hoping you can come up with one piece of good content a month. You can do a couple if you've got room, but I typically limit it to one. Add a call to action at the end of your letter. I'm going to show you what this looks like, so don't worry. But you want to add a call to action. It's not just a letter with friendly information, but you want to tell people to do something at the end. And then you want to ask for referrals, because you know, referrals, if you're doing your job well, referrals will happen, but they'll happen more often if you simply ask for them. And if you accompany your referral request with some good content, then your referrals go up. I've seen this happen over and over for my business and for the people that I recommend this to. Step 4 is to mail it. Do not cheap out on this. Email is not the same. I know that a lot of you, most of you, all of you are online to a great extent, and so am I. But email is completely different from direct mail. You got to mail it to have the full effect. And I have to say this again, mail with a stamp. I include this twice because people will blow right by it. Mailing is critical. It's not that expensive. If it lands you one new client a month, it more than pays for itself. And typically you can even do better than that. So here's what one of these things looks like. It's 2 pages, 2 sides of one sheet of paper. That's why I call it a newsletter. It's a letter. If you look at the format, there's no fancy design skills needed here. These little boxes, I just simply inserted them so that you can see what the parts are. But I start with a whimsical opening. Typically, I tie it to the month. Happy Bastille Day, Happy Halloween, Happy Thanksgiving. Whatever the calendar month is, that's probably a good excuse for your opening. And people are, thinking about what's on the calendar. There's a great copywriter, long dead, but long remembered. His name was Robert Collier, and he suggested that you enter the conversation that's already going on in the minds of your prospects. So right now, as we're doing this, a lot of people are talking about politics, rightly or wrongly. That's maybe a minefield, but if it's November, you want to talk about Thanksgiving. There's always something on the calendar that can give you an opening that's going to get attention. So I always start my newsletters with something seasonal. And then at the bottom there, I've got a news item. This was a lesson I paid more than $4,000 to learn. Really, these are excerpts from my notes. I went to a very expensive seminar, and I shared my notes with the people in this newsletter. They loved it. I was saving them $4,000 and giving them news that they really found useful. So the content doesn't even have to be yours. folks. You can, if you go to seminars or events and you've got notes, that's perfectly fine. You can even take it from somebody else's blog as long as you cite them. So that's page 1 here. It's real simple. There's no layout skills involved. Page 2, just continuing the idea, I've got another news item near the top there. And at the bottom are my call to action and asking for referrals. Call to action is simply this: let me know what you think. You can call me at my phone number or email at my email address. So let me know what you think. Frankly, this is a very low-key call to action. If I were getting paid by a client to write this, I wouldn't mess around. I would say, please pick up the phone and call me now. And I would put a deadline there. That's a true call to action. But this will suffice. It works for me. And the bottom, in my little PS, I remind people, this is very important, that I'm never too busy to talk to them or their referrals. One of the reasons people don't send you referrals, it's not because you stink or they're not happy with you. For many people, if they're your clients, they don't want you to get too busy to serve them. It's kind of an unspoken rule of referrals. If I love my tax preparer, my CPA, and I get tons of attention from her, I may not send her referrals because I don't want her to get so busy with other people that she can't help me. Same thing with the woman who buys my health insurance. I send her referrals, but if she stops returning my calls, I'll stop sending her referrals. It's that simple. So this goes on. You just got to recognize it. And I tell people I'm never too busy to talk to you or anyone you know who needs money-making copy. And I jump in with a phone number again at the end. You can never go wrong by repeating your phone number. You can never go wrong by repeating how people can get in touch with you because they may miss it otherwise. So that's
Kevin,
a quick, simple layout. Yeah.
Kevin, one quick question for you. So CTAs are a big deal. They're a big conversation point, and especially with conversion rate optimization discussions and funnels that we're all working so hard to do. But you had an interesting comment the other way. You know, like what you would do differently if this was a real client or something like that. You would be more hard sell. I mean, isn't that selling though? Aren't calls to action really all about the lead into the call to action? Don't you have to earn the right, if you will, to ask for the call to action? Can you comment on how you balance that when you actually craft these offers / value propositions that you're tossing out to customers? And by the way, I can't help but think, somebody actually had a comment earlier. It's like, you know, I actually wrote back to them, but, you know, like mailing a fax, really, you know, or sending, you know, printing out an email and then mailing it, like that is so anti the way we think about digital marketing, right?
Exactly.
But maybe that's your point, is what I was going to say. So you can take that question later, but go back to the CTA. When is a CTA selling, right? And when and selling too hard versus communicating and asking for the relationship? How do you distinguish those two in your writing?
Well, I would say, I don't know if I would call the CTA selling. It's really a call to action. It's requesting people to take the next step, and that can often lead to a sale. So I want to be clear about, you know, what the call to action is. If I say, let me know what you think, that's kind of low key. If I want to be really clear and you know, I want to maximize sales for my client, I'm not going to be pushy, but I am going to be more direct. I'm going to say, please contact me today. Please contact me now. I'm going to include language that's very direct. Please contact me now. Please pick up the phone and call me. The word now is a helpful one to include there. Don't think that you're being bossy. What you're really doing is leveraging the commands that we got as 5-year-olds. When the teacher told you, now sit down, please. We've been trained when we hear the word now, it's going to involve a command, and we're going to pay more attention to it. So I'll include things like now or today, or, you know, right away. But I would say that to answer your question, I hope, I would just simply be clearer and more direct with a call to action if there's a lot of money riding on this sales letter or this web page promotion.
Got it. Thanks much. Perfect.
Yeah. So, and we'll talk about. Yeah, I love the comment about the digital marketing. So that we'll tackle that later. I love it. So that's what a newsletter looks like. And again, this is something that you print. Can you send out 10,000 of these? Maybe not. But do you have, you know, 20, 50 people in your world, 100 that really matter to you? Are they not worth, you know, a stamp and a letter? The answer is yes, invariably, because this will kind of allude to my answer to the question about, you know, the paper email. But yeah, we're digital marketers, but are your clients digital? Your clients are flesh and blood. So you might as well interact with them with their fingers and hands and their eyes. Never lose sight of the fact that digital people don't buy a thing from you. It's always real people. So the sooner you can take your digital marketing and get offline with it, the faster you can be tangible with people, the faster you're going to be credible with people. So that's a real underbelly of digital marketing. It generates some controversy, and I'm happy that it does, because if everyone agreed with me, then I'd have I'd have no role in the world. So I want to just challenge you to think that, are your clients entirely digital? The answer is no. So you might as well interact with them where they live and breathe. So that was that marketing multiplier. Let's look at number 5. This is something I call the Amazon focus group. If you're ever familiar with focus groups, there's a lot said about them. Most of it's negative. I've been a part of some of them, and they really don't generate results that are credible and useful for most people, a focus group. But the Amazon focus group, by contrast, does generate really credible opinions. It gives you stuff that you can use to improve any aspect of your marketing. The Amazon focus group is simply using Amazon book reviews to find out what people are thinking. And book reviews are very important on Amazon, because unless they receive the book as a gift, and there's a growing number of those that do, someone who's reviewed a book on Amazon has paid for the thing. And these are valuable opinions because it's someone who had a problem similar to what you're trying to solve, and they paid money to solve it. So you want to listen to what these reviews say. I've generated headlines out of these reviews. I've found bullet points out of these reviews. It's really a happy hunting ground. If you need ideas for your content, you can find them in these reviews. This is literally the market speaking, so it's a very valuable focus group for you. And so I'm showing you a couple of examples here: a 5-star review and a 2-star review, a happy person and an unhappy person. And don't sweat over the wording. I just want to pull out a couple of important phrases. And the top one was a 5-star review of a book on wedding planning. And so as a bit of background here, this is the kind of research I did a few years ago. I was hired to write an email promotion for a travel agency. They were selling destination weddings, and his target market was women aged 25 to 30. Well, at the time, I was a male, aged about 40, 45, and I had zero in common with his target marketing. So I went over to Amazon and started looking at book reviews, and I started compiling a big list of comments and bullet points. And you'll see in a minute the results of that email. But you can see the language here. I've never been much of a wedding person, but figuring out which flowers I wanted in my bouquet, what color my bridesmaid dresses should be. These are, concerns of a woman who bought a book on wedding planning, and she was happy with the book. But all those little things are important. I'm not a wedding person, and figuring out flowers, all that stuff I never would have had any idea, even though I'm married. I didn't know any of the stuff went on in a marriage. Now the bottom one, take it or leave it. This was an unhappy person. And this is a really interesting thing that she said. It isn't worth paying for this book. All the same information is available for free at their website. This is a very common objection with a lot of things that are sold online, especially information products. A lot of people will say, I can find this online for free. The way to overcome that objection is to simply say, yeah, if you value your time as much or below someone who makes tacos at Taco Bell, sure, spend 20 hours, have at it. But if your time is more valuable than minimum wage, you probably want to pick up this resource because it's going to save you from 20 to 30 hours of research. That's an example of an objection that someone made with an unhappy book review, and it tells you what objections you need to overcome in your copy. And this is your market talking to you. It makes it very easy. Byron?
Can I pause there for 1 second? That is crazy awesome. So how are you using Amazon focus groups then for clients? So are you going in and searching for sort of book reviews on topics related to what your clients are selling?
Yeah, I do it every day. And wow. let me go off the board for 100 here, Byron. So the other way to use this, I didn't show you a visual of it. Most of the best-selling books, I was just doing this yesterday. I'm working with a client on search engine optimization. I know it, but I'm not up to speed on it. So I found the best-selling books on SEO. And Amazon lets you search within the book. I searched the table of contents for these books, and there is a completely laid out argument for what you have to do to make your SEO work. I copied it, and now it's a structure for a whole bunch of web pages. I'm going to write for the client. He thinks I'm a genius. I won't tell him otherwise. And the research is done for you. Not only can you use the book reviews, but you can use the table of contents within the books to tell you what's important. If you want to take it further, you can look at the index. How many times does this specific word appear in a book? That tells you it's a very important term. You may want to work that. You may want to use that for keyword optimizing for your blog, for example. So Amazon is a real happy hunting ground, both for the reviews, which you're seeing here, and then the tables of contents. There are a couple other ways I could do a 30-minute presentation just on this, but I want to give you the sense that this is a very valuable focus group, folks, because all these people paid money and they're now expressing their opinions. So you might want to listen to them. So back to our story. This is about 5 years ago. I wrote a promotion for my friend, the travel agent. And here's what happened. He had 30 phone calls out of 2,291 emails sent, totaled $32,400 in packages sold, including a trip to Tahiti and a Jamaica honeymoon. So I would submit to you that if I can sell a trip to Tahiti through email, you can probably sell pretty much anything through email. This is from Earl, guy here in the Twin Cities. And I did it by getting very deep into the minds of my prospects, who were all women, using the Amazon focus group. So yeah, it's a crazy good idea. Like most ideas that are crazy good, it's not mine. I can't remember who taught it to me. I learned it about 7 years ago, but it works, and it's criminally underestimated, and it's underutilized. But I hope folks, you know, if you're watching this today, you may want to give this a shot. It's a really valuable idea. All right, we're in the home stretch. We've got 2 more to go. And we want to finish up probably in about 5 minutes here, Byron, so we can do some Q&A. I never run long, so trust me here. The pain detector. You had on someone in one of your webinars recently. She was from the Wild Agency, and she said this, and this is a principle I've used for years, but it's based on this factor, that if you had to sell smoke detectors to a family, which one would you have an easier time making a sale to? The happy family on the beach, or the distraught family in the shell of their burnt-out home? It's kind of a rhetorical question. It's easier to sell, you know, something to someone who's experienced a tremendous amount of pain most of the time. As a matter of fact, the research supports this. Studies have shown that loss is twice as motivating as gain when you're trying to get someone to buy into what you're saying. So if you can take whatever sales message you have, whatever persuasion you're trying to make, and tie it to loss, or pain is another way to look at this. If you can tie it to loss or pain, you're probably going to see an increase in your sales. Again, it's not across the board accurate 100% of the time, but it works enough that I always start with loss or pain, almost always, when I'm doing a sales message. So this is a very dramatic example I want to show you. You can prove this for yourself. First I want to show you how to prove it, then I'm going to show you the example. Go to Google and search for blank horror stories and blog. Landlord horror stories, if you're blogging or writing about landlord or, you know, real estate. Wedding horror stories. I think I spoke earlier about, you know, the wedding planner. I was also looking for horror stories using this technique. Hiring horror stories, blog. The reason you're looking for horror stories and blog, you're looking for blog posts, not articles in magazines, but you're looking for someone, you know, who's an amateur, basically, who's writing about this stuff either from their personal experience or because they've done the research. You're looking for horror stories on a blog about your topic. You want to take this step a bit further if you can and look for the comments in the posts to horror stories about your topic. The more people will post comments to a story and say, that happened to me, oh my God, you know, let's use an example of the landlord. That happened to me. People stopped paying the rent for 3 months. They had 5 dogs. You know, there were feces knee deep. There were McDonald's wrappers coming out the windows. They smashed the windows, blah, blah, blah. All of these horror stories that you find written on blogs about your topic, those are pain points. And if you can push those little pain points, they're little hot buttons, you can make people, frankly, react rather irrationally and emotionally, and they're much more likely to buy your, you know, what you're selling. You have to use this ethically. I don't take on clients who, you know, are not ethical people, because it's a very, very powerful technique. But if you can find things that are just horrifying, and if you can find the posts on blog stories about them, again, this is related to the Amazon focus group. This is your market talking in very dramatic language much of the time. Open a text file, start keeping these comments, and they're like Krugerrands. They're incredibly valuable little things that you can use in whatever you're writing. Byron?
Yes.
Thanks for caring about my question. Are you looking, is it possible to use this for leads, are you suggesting, or more listening to the the face-up stories of pain points and to learn from the language being used and to put that work with your copy.
It's the latter. It's to look for more language patterns and things that are, whatever, any kind of a blog post that gets like 75 comments, that tells you a lot of stuff. It tells you that's resonating with the market. It tells you that you're probably going to be able to resonate with the same market if you echo that language. So this can help you if you want to write blog posts that get higher readership. Just echo that language. If you want to put together a web page sales letter or your own web page, echo the language that's getting tons of comments on a blog post. And again, this is kind of related to the Amazon focus group. It's your market talking. But the language, if it's coming from a blog post, this is everyday street language, lots of typos and misspellings. That's fine. Clean it up. Presumably you know how to write if you're on this webcast. But this is tremendous insights into what's painful for your marketing, which segues into the real dramatic example here. This just happened about 4 months ago. This is my client. Paid me a good amount of money to increase his sales. He was selling test prep software. This was his old gainful headline. He was saying results-obsessed test prep. That's actually probably, I wouldn't even call it a gainful headline. It's just kind of a what in the heck is this headline? But there was no pain involved. So luckily, I have a daughter who didn't get into her top choice of schools. So I was able to echo this from my own conversations with her. But I found similar headlines using the technique I just showed you. But here's the language that I used, which was very painful. It said, "Mom, Dad, I got rejected. Discover the dirty little secret that's keeping your child out of America's best colleges." Simply by changing the headline from gain to pain and talking about loss, most of the sales letter was the same kind of language, but the headline was dramatically different. Here's what happened for my client. He went from $19,000 in sales to $46,000 in sales, a gain of more than twice. It was 139% increase in 60 days. Largely the same message, but with a very different angle, because people will take action. This kind of proves that whole claim more than twice as much. This is 130% gain, and people will take action more than twice as many times to avoid pain than they will just to go after gain. So this is a dramatic example of what can happen when you emphasize, pain and loss in your sales messages. And again, do this ethically, please. You don't want to take anybody for a ride, but it works. You might as well use it.
I noticed one quick one there, and can you put that slide back for just 1 second? It's so awesome to me that you used an actual quote in the headline itself. Are you finding that that's really working these days?
Oh, that's a good question. So you're saying that this headline at the bottom has quote marks around it? And that was a valid. And so the answer is yes. If you include your headline in quotes, it gets higher readership. Research has shown this for decades. I think David Ogilvy found it back in the 40s.
And are you leading with the pain typically?
Yeah, that's how I
laid out your
pain.
Here. Yeah, mm-hmm. Yeah. You lead with pain, but you quickly, create mystery and a story behind it and a desire to solve that pain point. Is that what the goal is, both of the headline and really the way you write copy? Would you not agree?
Yeah, this goes back to what Robert Collier said about entering the conversation that's going on in the mind of your prospect. I point out that the pain that they're already having, I kind of speak their language. I can get it from conversations, everyday conversations. I can get the language from Amazon book reviews. I can get the language from looking for horror stories on blogs. If you can connect with people, remind them of what they're thinking now, and then speak their language, they'll follow you to the end, as long as you're promising incredible benefits. So without attention, you're dead. Bottom line, with your headline, if a headline doesn't get attention, your ad's dead in the water. Your website, your blog, it's all dead, dead, dead. So the headline's critical. Back to the 80-20 rule, your headline could be as much as 80% of the whole effectiveness of your ad. So I put a lot of time into headlines. And yes, if you can put your headline in quote marks, it's actually going to get more attention. But it's all got to be tested. There's no panacea. But this is something that I found over and over to be really effective. So it's a very good question. And the numbers speak for themselves, largely the same message, but a completely different slant on things. So we got 10 minutes to the top of the hour. I want to quickly go. This is one of my favorites. If you send proposals or price quotes, if you're selling a service, something intangible, you probably are sending something like a proposal. I submit that you want to send an unproposal. What do I mean? You're looking at the template of the proposals that I sent to my own clients. So this is a peek into my own shop here. I've redacted a few things, whited them out, to keep this confidential. But the two areas to look at are the upper right where it says project outline. Well, first of all, if this is a proposal, why am I calling it a project outline? The answer is I don't want to speak commodity language. How do people buy stuff? They get 2 or 3 price quotes and then they take the cheapest one. That's often what happens. And so if one of my clients is holding 2 proposals and 1 project outline, they're holding 2 price quotes and 1 project outline. I am an orange and the other guys are apples. So simply by naming your proposal something else, you can stand out. This costs you $0, and you just want to do some brainstorming. You can call it a blueprint, a project outline. Well, don't take that. That's mine. You can call it a game plan, a snapshot, a projection, whatever you want to call it. Just don't call it a proposal. Don't call it a price quote, for God's sake. Just give it another name. The second element to look at is down at the bottom. It's circled. It says the Harmon Project. This is the other thing that you want to do. You want to name it after your prospect. There's all kind of research that shows that you don't have to be told this. You love your name. We all love our name. And people will favor their name and anything connected with their name over other stuff. So if I just call this, the big money project for you, not so much. But if I call it the Harmon Project, I've got this prospect's attention. His last name was Harmon. And if you say no to a project that's named after you, you are in effect saying no to yourself. So there's a little bit of psychology. Actually, there's a lot behind this. And this thing has a close rate for me from anywhere from 75 to 80% of the time. People will say yes to my stuff because it's a project outline and it's named after them. So I want to commend this to you. 2 simple steps, folks. Whatever you're using from now on, just don't call it a proposal. Give it a unique name. And number 2, name your project after the prospect. If you do nothing else than that, I promise you your conversions are going to go up. More people are going to say yes to whatever you're selling, everything else being equal. I've never, ever, ever seen this fail to work for anyone who's used it, both among my members and in my own business. And this is probably my favorite marketing multiplier because it costs you 0. It's just a change in language, but it's a huge psychological lever that increases your conversions. So that's a good thing. So I think here's why it works. It helps you bypass the curse of commoditization. If everyone else is sending a price quote and you're sending a project outline, you are no longer a commodity. They cannot price shop you. And the second element, which I said earlier, just to echo this, everyone loves their name. You can do the research. It's fascinating. But people are drawn to things with their name on them. We're fascinated by ourselves. We're all narcissists. So that's why it works. And this is my last slide. We can go into Q&A now, but for everyone on this webinar, if you sell a service or if your clients do, I would love to send you a free box of 11 marketing multipliers. You need to be here in the United States to get it in the mail. You can certainly order it as a PDF if you're overseas. I do have members in Australia. But it's free. There's $1 for postage, and it's at marketingmultipliers.com. Some of the elements in the box that you'll get include some things we talked about today, and others you haven't even heard yet. There's also a critique certificate in your first box, and in every monthly box puts me to work for you. I'll review a piece of copy or a promotion for you and give you my best insights, and my members report getting some really nice sales gains from the critiques I give to them because I'm a former teacher. I love to help, and I get a lot of fun out of this. So it's at marketingmultipliers.com. I invite everyone on the webcast there to go there and claim your free trial box. Happy to send it out to you. Byron, over to you. If you have any questions, let's get cracking on those.
Sounds good. We've got some questions pouring in, but I've got to ask a couple myself. So first of all, I think we can say that you're fairly obsessed with listening to the target audience. Mm-hmm. What other you mentioned a couple of great ones, the Amazon forums and surfing, for blog posts using Google. Mm-hmm. And looking at surfing for books and keywords and identity. Where else do you recommend people looking? And by the way, let me preface this question by saying the following. I've said all along in many webinars, I'm up to 90-something, that that content marketing by definition is listening to the wants and needs of your customers and trying to deliver to them in a compelling way. This art of listening is really hard, and we're seeing websites like BuzzSumo, who I've done a webinar with and a podcast with, like you now, by the way, that you've made the webinar bridge. They're finding popular topics for us that people are sharing a lot, and they're surfacing what's being passed around and shared, which is obviously another good listening tool to see what's hot. We have keyword search tools that will tell us what popular people are searching for. That helps us design optimization. But this art of listening to the way people talk about their pain points, where else are you listening for that sort of language?
Well, I would say, first of all, don't overlook the Amazon, book reviews, the tables of contents, and the blogs, because you can mine that vein very deep, and you can spend an entire day researching them. I've spent 4, 5, 6 hours at a clip. Having said that, other places that I go are the bookstore. Do you see any trends if you go to Barnes and Noble? Or is it Borders? I always forget. Barnes and Noble. Look at all the front pages of the magazines. What are the headlines? By the way, magazine headlines are invaluable to you, especially National Enquirer or Cosmopolitan. There's millions of dollars of research that go into those headlines. And if you're an aspiring copywriter or you want to write better blog posts, you can do a lot worse than getting a National Enquirer and just clipping out the headlines for a month. And letters to the editor are another good thing in the newspaper, whatever newspaper your prospects are reading, the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, local newspaper, letters to the editor. That's your language. That's your market, again, speaking. So I'm always looking for what are my prospective buyers thinking. I have no interest in what marketing experts are saying, really, apart from big trends. That's useful. Anyone who can make sense of trends for me, I'm happy to listen to them. But, if I'm writing a sales piece for a client, I'm on the phone with them for at least an hour. I transcribe every interview, and I take whatever they say on the phone and massage it, and then I'll call some of their clients occasionally, same thing. So really transcribing a phone call is another terrific way to speak the language of your client. Or if you're writing a blog post, just transcribe something that someone's telling you. But whatever you can do to listen to people in the marketplace and just use their wording and to hit their emotions, that's going to improve whatever you're doing.
So let's talk about what you do with that data once you get it. So you get the words, you get the language. What are you doing with it? Creating an outline, creating buzzwords, creating phrases. Is it a trigger for the actual copy and content you're going to write and the way you write it, or is it are you going to try to infuse it in headlines and come up with almost project topic ideas on what a customer should write about based upon what the listening that you're doing? Or, of course, all of the above is probably what you're going to say. But try to articulate that to us. Yeah.
How do I use it? So, first of all, your research has to be in service of a specific goal. What's my purpose? What am I researching? Is it a sales letter? Is it a web page? Completely different media there. A lot of my writing is actually rewriting, and it's actually sleep writing. I've got a big project now. I'm writing 54 web pages for an international client, and it's a big output I have to deliver every week, 2 to 3 web pages a week, sometimes 4. The way I write is I will interview them, and then I will look at the data, and then I will sleep on it. And in the morning, I'll look at that file again, and immediately patterns are going to emerge. And so really, I use my subconscious to do a lot of my writing for me. I wake up in the morning. You have to know when you write best, too. If you're a morning person, that's when you got to do it. If you're an evening person, that's when you got to do it. But a lot of my writing is done in my sleep. I'll sleep on a project and wake up and start organizing it. And then the most important writing I do, I think I said this in our podcast, the most important writing I do is rewriting. So it's never, ever going to be good the first time around. No first draft should ever be your final draft. I'll write something in the morning, and then I sit on it for maybe another 24 hours and come back the next day, and bang, in 15 minutes I can be done with it. So a lot of it's really doing, parceling it out. Don't agonize for 4 hours in front of a keyboard ever. You're never going to get anything good doing that. I parcel things out over 2 to 3 days, little spurts of work like that, use my subconscious, and it works for me. It works for a lot of copywriters that I know, too.
Someone wanted to know how they can get a PDF version of the box. They live in another country and they love the data. Can they send you an email on that?
You can order off the website. Good question. As I said, I've got some intrepid members in Australia for some reason. They don't take no for an answer in Australia, even though I said it's going to come by mail. They say I want it by PDF. So you can certainly request it. My assistant will make sure that you get it by PDF every month, and I'm happy to help you with copy critiques too. So yes to that. Just won't come by mail.
You're surprised you didn't list Twitter as a search tool, someone noted. Thank you, Lisa.
Good question. Yeah, I do use it. For me, it's not a tool of choice simply because it's too distracting. All of a sudden, 45 minutes are gone. So it's a personal preference. Twitter to me is way too much like, dumping a cat in a 12-acre field of catnip. I just go crazy, and it's not my tool of choice, but I certainly recommend it if you want to get a pulse for what people are thinking right now. It's a good tool.
Someone was fascinated with your project outline. They said, are you giving people a tool for price shopping with your competitors?
The answer is no. The funny thing about when I if I pull back the curtain and tell you what I'm doing, people still won't do it. My competitors don't do this. Here's something I didn't get a chance to say, but since anyone who's sticking around for this long deserves the bonus, I also print and mail my project outlines, and specifically I send it FedEx. And by the way, that's how you get 100% open rate for your paper emails, is to send the thing FedEx. It's 100% open rate. There's no such thing as a FedEx that goes in the trash unopened. So I send my project outlines by FedEx. I've sent them by PDF. I've got clients all over the world. But if you really want to increase the conversions on your project outlines, send them FedEx. And, I tell people this, and especially my competitors, they're locked in their ways. They think this is kooky. The more people think I'm crazy, the happier I am most of the time, because it means I've got less competition.
Nancy Harhut, whose presentation you mentioned, by the way, has reciprocated and listened to your presentation, just so you know, and had an interesting question she thought the audience might want to know, and that is, if there's a buying committee, do you put the company name in the proposal or just one person?
Good question. It's a judgment call. I've done company names and I've done people names. So the answer is use your judgment. If it's multiple buyers, you can go with the company name. Just make sure that you're addressing a person when you start the thing, Dear Frank, and then we'll call it the ABC project. But the answer is use your judgment. But most of the time I'm dealing with entrepreneurs, decision makers. If there's one decision maker, name it after them. If it's a committee, name it after the company.
Fabio had an interesting question. Do you think it's important to speak right in your client's native language, Portuguese or Spanish, to sell your products or offer your services?
Yeah, I would say yes. I don't do anything for, I'm not discriminatory. I literally don't speak the language. I've had people who, I've had clients in Australia and I've done good work for them, but I'd like to restrict myself to North America. It's just a personal preference. You can certainly try it, but I stick to people, who are native English speakers with a native English-speaking audience. That's just me.
Regarding the pruning, someone had a great question, and that is regarding being careful about pruning links on pages that can destroy hard-won SEO rankings.
Sure.
Do you have any thoughts on that, and do you focus more on creating new landing pages that have zero links and are better for conversion rate optimization?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the answer is, yeah, you have to look at your Google Analytics or whatever you're using to measure site traffic. And if you've got a huge, page that's bringing in tons of traffic, I would not mess with those links. Very good question. It's a matter of testing. You have to decide is it worth, maybe compromising, SEO in order to increase sales or conversions. You certainly want to keep an original version of the page so you can revert to it. But for a lot of what I'm talking about is involving, sales and persuasion. So if it's a landing page, for example, probably they're only getting there because you drove them there with paid or other traffic. And, specifically for a landing page, it's almost always a good idea to remove options. But yeah, you have to do a cost-benefit analysis. Is it worth maybe losing a little bit of traffic to remove a link? That's a question you have to decide for yourself.
Someone else pointed out Quora is a good listening tool. Have you ever used Quora?
Yeah, I have. Yahoo Answers, all of those things. I just find the signal-to-noise ratio for Quora. I have to be a member. I don't like signing up for stuff, personal preference, but I can blow through a bunch of book reviews on Amazon in about an hour and get a real good pulse for the market. Again, Quora, did those people buy anything? Are they just opining? That's important. Professional experts are probably the last people on earth I ever want to talk to if I want to know what the market is thinking. So, yeah, you have to, it's just a preference.
Well, it's just been a pleasure. I don't want to tax any more of your time, but it's been really great having you on today. You've got some great comments, by the way, and good feedback. One person wrote, "Kevin, you rock." So that's somewhat of a good sign.
Thank you very much.
So you can thank Diane for that.
Thanks, Diane.
Right on. So once again, thank you so much for being with us today. Who would you like to get a hold of you, and how can they get a hold of you, Kevin?
The best place is to go to marketingmultipliers.com. That's where I have my tools available. If you can afford me, my copywriting is available at www.clientcloningsystems.com. I am, however, booked for the next 2 months, no new projects. So for most people, marketingmultipliers.com is the best way to reach me.
Perfect. Well, it's no surprise to me that you're booked for the next 2 months. I'm going to try to slip in some of my own time with our new site we're launched, so you can, help us out perhaps. But we'll let you take a look at that when it's up.
Super.
Thanks again, Kevin, for being with us today.
My pleasure. Thanks, folks. It's great chatting with you today. Hope you found some value. Take care.
Fantastic information. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. We'll see you next month. Thanks again.